If you've worked in an organization of more than about 2 people, you've almost certainly encountered silos or territoriality. It turns out there's an easy-ish way to avoid these kinds of behaviors. And in this video, I'm going to explain what that is. Hey, how's it going? This is Scruffy Leadership, a YouTube channel about management and leadership. My name's Ben, and I've been a leader and a manager in the tech industry for over 25 years. The ideas I'm presenting in this video aren't mine. I got them from a brilliant book called Silos, Politics and Turf Wars by Patrick Lencioni. You may have heard of him and his more famous book, The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. He's actually written lots of similar books, and I actually really recommend all of them. So to get started, I should just explain briefly what silos are. So an organization that has silos has people that work in different teams that see themselves as being in competition with each other. So maybe it's competition for headcount to hire people, or maybe it's competition for budget, or competition just for the CEO's attention. But whatever it is, if you have silos, and your organization almost certainly does, then people don't collaborate with each other across the silo boundaries. They see themselves as competing with each other. And you can also think of this as territoriality, the tendency that people have to do anything at all to protect their turf, their territory, even if it's at the expense of their colleagues in other teams. Now, in reality, companies succeed when everyone's pulling in the same direction, and silos make that almost impossible. So what Patrick Lencioni discovered, and what he explains in his book, is that the best way to get people to work together across team boundaries, across silo boundaries, is to have a crisis. I'm sure you've probably experienced this, a deadline that's about to be missed, or a piece of bad publicity. A crisis of this kind gets everyone to pull together. It doesn't last forever, but it does tend to yield great results in the short term. But I'm sure you're thinking, you don't want to work in a company in which you lurch from one crisis to another just to get people to collaborate with each other across team boundaries. If you're thinking that, then I agree with you. I have worked in companies that have a lot of crises, and it's not fun. It leads to misery and burnout. So what can be done? Well, the idea is not to artificially create crises, but rather to discover what it is about crises that gets people working together. Most people really do want to work together, but in most organizations, silos are created by leaders, usually unintentionally. And the way this happens is each leader gives their team a goal, which relates just to that team. So you might have the CFO giving their team a financial goal and the CTO giving their team a technical goal, and so on. And this means that the people in the engineering team don't really have an incentive to help the finance people achieve their goals, and vice versa. So the solution then is just to have a common goal across all the teams. Lencioni calls this a thematic goal, and it has a few important properties. It's just a single goal, it's a qualitative goal, not a quantitative one, it's shared by all leaders and by the whole company, and it lasts for a predetermined period of time only, so it's time-boxed. Now, the reason you want a single goal is because it avoids confusion and competition. If you have 2 goals, then one of them has to be more important than the other, or people will be choosing which goal to go after. This doesn't mean you don't also have other kinds of goals. You do, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But the point is that you have this one single thematic goal that the whole company is aiming for. It's very much like responding to a crisis, but it doesn't have to involve anything actually going wrong. So an example of a goal might be get customer complaints down, and that might be in response to a crisis. But it might be build the team to deal with the increase in orders we've received. So that could be in response to something good happening. In any case, you have to be clear up front that this will last for a fixed period, probably something like a few months. If it's going to last forever or for an unspecified period of time, people will get sick of it or forget about it and move on to other priorities. Now, although the thematic goals should be specified in as succinct a way as possible, you do also need some detail behind it, and this comes in the form of a set of defining objectives. So these are also shared, qualitative, and time-boxed, and they go into a bit more detail about what you're going to do to achieve your thematic goal. So this might, for example, include responding to every customer query within 48 hours, or it might involve fixing a specific set of bugs in the software. And as well as these objectives, which help to define the thematic goal, you also need your regular goals. Lencioni calls these standard operating objectives. So these might be about revenue or customer numbers or whatever else your business usually aims for. And these can be permanent. And one day, one of them might become a thematic goal. Maybe revenue is dropping and you have a thematic goal to get revenue back on track. And then when that fixed period is over, it's not that you stop caring about revenue, because although it stopped being a thematic goal, it's still one of your standard operating objectives. And the final component is metrics. So although the thematic goal and the defining objectives are qualitative, so not numerical, you do also have to measure things to make sure you know whether you're on track or not. The point is to have a way to measure how the company is performing against its thematic goal and against its objectives. How you pick the thematic goal is an interesting topic in itself. In some cases, if you have a real crisis, you might not have a choice. Although notice that this framework already gives you a much better way to approach a crisis than just going into panic mode. So if you do have a crisis, you know the things you need to put in place. If you don't have a crisis, you can get everyone together and discuss what might make a good thematic goal. And importantly, this needs to include people from across the various teams, across the various silos. If the finance team comes up with a thematic goal, engineers aren't going to feel very committed to it. But if everyone comes up with it together, then everyone can feel bought in. And once you do have your thematic goal and your objectives and your metrics, the final step is to communicate all this to everyone. And this is the real point of the framework. Everyone knows the same thing. Everyone has the same goal and objectives and metrics. So as an example, if the company decides that the thematic goal is finally launching that delayed update to the software, everyone from engineering to finance and from sales to customer support needs to understand the role they play in helping the company to achieve that goal. They carry on doing their normal work as well, but they all know that this launch is the top priority, which means that when the CTO comes to the CFO and asks her for some help, for example, she's much more likely to say yes because it will help achieve her goal, which is the same goal as everyone else's as well. If you want to understand this subject in more detail, I do recommend the book. It explains all of this in the form of a fable, a realistic story about a consultant who spends time with a disparate group of organizations and figures out what's holding them back from succeeding, and then the story goes on to explain how he puts his plan into place. It's a fun read and a very quick one. What experiences have you had of silos and territoriality? Why not share them in the comments below? And the same goes if you have any ideas for subjects you'd like to see me cover in future videos. And if you've enjoyed this video, why not check out the one that's on screen now? YouTube reckons you'll enjoy it. Bye. See you soon.